I'm going to say a few words about working with a translator. First of all, yeah, there you go. First of all, beware of your translator. Because I have watched don't have time to tell you the stories, but we have many strange abuses, habits that have formed. I actually had a man who, a case that in Ivory Coast last year, I walked in to listen to this. There was a college student that was preaching, and well, actually this was two on the same night. I had one guy that came and stood right beside, here's where he stood, come right over here, there you go, just like this, rubbing shoulders like this, and when the student said something on his phrase and he added something other than what was there, the translator said, you can't say that, it's not on the notes. Okay? Then I went, I think it was the very next site that same night, and I saw weird things. I saw that it was in a tent, the student was here, and the translator was down in front, 15, 20 feet in front of him, on the floor, on the ground, right in front of the people. And so the students would say, our topic tonight is titled, Countdown to Eternity. And the translator went on and on and on and on and on. And finally the translator took a breath. And the student thought, well, that's my chance. So he started to stop. And the translator turned around and said, no, I'm not finished yet. So I told them, bring those translators with me to our morning meeting the next morning. So I asked them to come up on the platform, and one guy, he came up here on the platform, and he stood right beside me. And I said, sir, no, sir, I want you to stand right over here. Now stay right there. I do not want you to see my nose. In other words, you translate what I say, not what you think I ought to say. Okay, so beware, beware of some of the weird ones. All right, the other guy, when he got up here on the platform, I made my phrase, and I sat there and watched him. And he started waxing a little eloquent. And I said, sir, I want you to tell me exactly what you said compared to what I said. I said this, what did you say? And it was evident he had tried to embellish what I said. And I said, I didn't pay you to do the preaching, I paid you to do the translation. I didn't pay you for either one. But I want you to translate exactly what I say. And I called his attention to what I'd heard him do the night before. So beware of translators. Now, I understand we've got a good one here, so you can move over here.
I'll try.
Now, what I want you to do, I'm going to take just a few paragraphs out of the sermon on sermon number 2 here. And I want you to start translating for me now. So anything I say now, I want you to say in Tagalog.
Okay, lahat ng sasabihin ko, sabihin mo sa Tagalog.
Okay, even when I'm not preaching.
Kahit na hindi ako nagsasermon.
I want you to jump in and translate.
Gusto kong i-translate mo.
Okay, so when we start translating now,
So, go-umpisa tayo.
I want you to get the feel about how we're working together.
Gusto kong maramdaman mo kung ano ang ating gagawin.
I start talking
Magsisimula akong magsalita.
just before he finishes talking.
Bago siya matapos magsalita.
And that gives him permission
At bibigyan niya ako ng permiso
for him to start talking
para ako magsalita.
before I start talking.
Bago siya mag-umpisa.
So I jump right on top of him,
Kaya siya pupunta sa
and therefore he jumps on top of me.
At ako'y pupunta sa kanya.
And you know what happens?
At anong mangyayari?
None of you are asleep.
Walang natutulog.
You're like looking at a ping pong game.
Para kayong nanonood.
Go back and forth watching each one of us.
Titingin na kayo sa isa.
So the secret here is this.
Ang sikreto rito ay ganito.
As you practice your sermons,
Samantalang kayo nagsasabi.
when you're working in your room,
Kapag kayo nasa loob ng inyong silid.
practice preaching with short phrases
Magsanay kayo magsalita ng may
about the same length.
magkakaparehong haba.
Don't have a long sentence
Walang mahabang pangungusap.
and then 3 words.
Maiksi lang.
In other words, have a phrase. In other words, you want to imagine a metronome on the piano.
Okay? Halimbawa ay parang metro sa piano.
So the length of my phrase
Kaya yung haba ng pangungusap
and the length of his
at
translation
ang haba ng aking pagkasabi
is about the same length of
ay
time.
halos magkahaba lang.
So it's easy for each person to know
So madali para sa bawat isa
at about what time
kung Kung anong panahon,
the other person's going to stop talking
mahihito yung isa.
because of the length of time involved.
Because dun sa haba ng panahon.
So practice short phrases.
So, magsanay ng maigsing pangungusap.
Keep it rhythmic.
Gawin ninyong maayos.
Now, so the first point is short phrases. Just 1 second. First point is short phrases.
Okay, una, maigsing mga pangungusap.
Second point is rhythmic.
Pangalawa ay merong ritmo.
And thirdly, do not wait until your translator has
At
stopped.
pangatlo, huwag kayong maghihintay na huminto
Come
yung
in
translator.
right on top.
Lagi kayong mauna.
Now, don't do it too much.
Huwag naman masyado.
That's very confusing to the audience.
Malilito kayo.
But you don't want to waste 1 second.
Ngunit hindi nyo gusto
You wanna go
masayang
right
kahit
on the
nandun.
end.
Gusto nyo nandun agad kayo.
Because that's the only way
Sapagkat yun lang ang
you
paraan
give him permission
upang magbigay kayo ng
to come in on top of you.
para siya pumasok.
You can tell him all day long.
Sasabihin nyo sa kanya.
He won't pay any attention to you. But when you do it to him, he'll start doing it to you.
Gagawin niya sa
Okay? And your audience stays awake. Okay. Thank you. Don't expect to do that in your first sermon. But work on it. All you need to do is remember to speak in short phrases. And then after a while, you start thinking about coming in on the very end of your translator's phrase. If you'll remember the concept of short phrases as you practice your sermon out loud, that is 99% of the battle. How do we relate to our translators here on the site, as so they can discover unknown words, and you can discover which words are unknown to them. What I do, set up a time to meet the translator before the sermon. I do 2 things. The first and major thing is, on arriving there, I give the translator the set of notes like you have them. And in an hour, I let that translator scan through to see if there are any words or phrases that are unfamiliar to them. Then when I sit down and talk to them, they'll say, now what does this mean? So I'll tell them what it means, but it helps me remember, when you come there, find a better way to say it. And I'll be thinking through ways of reducing the problem. But I've also helped them understand what it means in case I forget. And I find that frankly takes away about 95% of the issues. He's asking about the using of a text that's projected. For your sake, make sure you read the text in English and let them quote it in Tagalog. Or say it in Tagalog. I tell them, you can look it up in the Bible if you want to, but if not, do the best you can translating it. The people are not going to expect you to be letter perfect when you're obviously translating what I'm saying. So just do the best you can. And usually that's perfectly fine. If you do not read the text, it hurts your presentation, because you need to internalize the point that you are making, why you're using that text. If you don't do it, it really inhibits the quality of your preaching and follow-up, because you did not understand what they said in Tagalog. In most cases, we don't know the second language. So I urge you to please go ahead and say it. What you add is microscopic, it's infinitesimal in terms of the overall. By the way, the kind of translation I'm talking about should add no more than about 20% to the length of your total sermon preaching time. No more. If you are going to do something other than what's on that script, make sure they know about it. That's really important, because there's nothing they can purge or find a problem word. They won't find it from what's in the text. But do not let them bring it into the pulpit. No manuscript for the translators. Leave it by the bed at home. Not into the pulpit, because otherwise you'll have 2 separate sermons being preached. Okay, and that is extremely disconcerting to an audience, especially when many of them understand both languages. That really is confusing. Okay, I personally don't mind them having it, but I'd rather give it to them when the sermon is over. Okay, yeah, you can have it, but I want you to read mine until then.